I'm going to start us off, and I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys, and we'll come back later. Let me get here one more person in. Mute you. Okay. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Here's my class. I've gotten much better at this. And then I go to slideshow. And then I go to here. I don't know why it's doing. Let me go back to here. For some reason, I want that to be the picture. No, it's not going to do it for me. I don't know. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Okay, better with age. So what are we going to do now? We've learned lots and lots of good information from the book. And last week, of course, we talked about wisdom. But let's take it even a little bit further. We've talked about the benefits of aging. And so some of the benefits that we have from aging, of course, is that we are wiser, that we can select on what's important, right? And that we can look at the happy faces instead of having that looking at the startled faces and always feeling in fear like, oh no, because we have so much background and so much knowledge inside of us. So this is extremely important. And I think a lot of times people, even in our culture and in our advertising and in our TV and our movies, we make older people seem like they're almost not as smart. But as we think about what it is to be better with aging, and we think of someone who's older, like who's the wise one, like Yoda, even if he's not a person, but you think of Yoda, he has, the cane and he's walking around and he's an older whatever Yoda is. But Yoda is older because we have so much wisdom and experience. And that actually brings forth more happiness. And this is where we've gone with these 4 classes up to our now 5th one. And the great thing about this book is that it has so much research that actually supports this. And then you go into it, we've now identified some really good role models. So if I want to flip back here real quick, because I wanted to say, has anyone been really, I now can see everybody, been thinking about, can they now hold on to that they can actually use themselves as a role model? I mean, because of this class, do you feel, Barb rolled her eyes. I saw you, Barb. Can you realize that, can you embrace that there's so much science behind that there is so much greatness going on because we've aged? There's actually less suffering because we don't over-identify with a feeling or an event in our life, meaning that if something bad happens, ta-da, the pandemic is bad happened, I don't think, oh my God, this is the end of my life. I'm never going to have this again. We're never going to do anything. My son, who is 21 now, can't go to Spain. He was meant to study abroad in Spain. And he was like so overwhelmed, upset by it for a little bit. And I understand, he's never been to Europe. So he felt like all his possibilities are gone. Meanwhile, I've been to Europe 4 or 5 times in my life. And I feel very fortunate for that. And I know I can go back, and I know he can, but he doesn't have any history with that. My other son lost his job. And when this all happened, he was like, oh my God, my whole career's over. I'm like, you're 23 years old. Let's know that your whole career better not be, because I'm not supporting you for the next 70 years. You better get that career going. But he didn't have any of that history and that survival that when you get older, we have. So when bad things happen, I take a breath and I think, oh, okay, it's not where I want to be, but it is where I'm at. And I don't have to have that Amy get totally activated. Does that make sense? Do I got some thumbs ups? All right. I love that. I love that. I just want to make sure it's such a big point because we've been learning all this for 4 weeks. And the science behind all these studies is proving to us that actually older people are happier people and they have more resilience. Now, the really ones that aren't happy and don't have resilience, they don't get that old, right? Because they have so much adrenaline and cortisol that run through their body. A lot of them will end up having heart attacks, inflammation, disease. I'm not trying to judge it, but those who are older tend to not get so upset about things and tend to look at the brighter side of life, right? Okay, let's go back to my sharing. There we go. So I want to tell us the story, and some of you guys heard this, but it's such a great story. There is these two monks. One was older, I will say 60. Let's make him 60, but he could have been 80. Who knows? He's an older monk. And the other one is like my son, maybe around 21. And they are walking along very peacefully and very balanced and, in their meditative, mindful walk. And they come across this river and they see this woman, and she has a lot of apprehension in her, and you can tell she's very upset. And they look at her and she says, I can't swim. I can't swim. I can't make it. And I have to get to the other side of this river, but I'm too scared to enter it. And I need to go and see my family on the other side. I don't know what to do. Well, they both just take a breath. And then the older one goes over and leans down, pats his back, and says, get on my back. And she does. And with his cane, he walks with stability and balance calmly across the river. Then he goes and he drops her off, puts her down, does a bow, and walks on. Well, the 21-year-old monk probably had the same reaction as my son when he lost his job. My career is over, is what he said. This monk said, oh my gosh. Well, he didn't say anything out loud, but he was like, oh my gosh. He was just shocked what he had just seen. And the reason why is because they had taken a vow that they would never touch a female. So they walked in quiet, no one saying anything, meditative walk, about an hour. And meanwhile, the younger monk, he started to kind of more stomp when he was walking. And he started to feel more aggressive, and he could feel the rage. He kept thinking, this monk has just broken his vow. How could he have done that? So finally, he turned around and he said, I need to say something. I need to say something right now. Something terrible has happened. The older monk said, yes. What is it? And he said, you touched a female. You picked up that girl and carried her across the river. How could you have done that? You have broken your vow. And the older monk looked at her and said, I put her down an hour ago. Why haven't you? This is such a profound story. Yes, he did break the vow, but he in loving kindness took the situation and saw what was he meant to do. And that really has a lot to do, kind of almost like with a protest. What do you do? Well, he picked her up, not as a female, but as a human being, as a loving kindness act. Not in any intention that was wrong. There was no male-female connection going on. Carried her, and then he let it go. Then he just said he did what he needed to do in loving kindness. He let it go. And he realized that he didn't break a vow because it wasn't about him picking up someone else. It was a loving kind act to do. But the younger monk couldn't let it go. It got stuck. And you see this picture I have right there in the amygdala. And he could not go into the loving kindness, where I love this picture where we have the flowers right here in the head. He couldn't go in and see the bigger picture, see what was actually happening, see the heart connection. So this is where we're going, and I want you to hold on to that story as we go through and we start really understanding the wisdom of age that he saw. The two things that we have talked about is that are very important on enhancing our memory and our cognitive ability and to be better with age was to learn something new. And I want you to know in the book, he talks about different ways of learning something new. Now, one thing he talks about is actually take your toothbrush and instead of brushing your teeth with your right hand, brush your teeth with your left hand. You're learning something new. You're activating up here where you have to concentrate. And you, even though this is a habit to brush your teeth, when you use your other hand, then what you're doing is using different parts of your brain. And this is what we need to do. He goes on and says, this time I was good, guys, in the book. I wrote down the sections. And learning a routine. Sometimes a good way to retain your brain, and that's what we want to do is retain our brain. I like that, retain our brain, is to do variations on things that we already do. Hiking in a familiar trail in reverse order, walking your dog on a new route, or even shopping at a different market can change your brain and break up familiarity. So when you're learning something new, we were talking about like if you're knitting and you always knew how to knit, you're not learning something new. Now, it's not a bad thing to do. You're still having attention and focus. But he's saying really to keep the whole brain exercised, you want to do and learn how to knit maybe with different needles that you've never used before or a different pattern that you've never done before. It's always about stretching yourself, challenging yourself, challenging your routine. There's a quote in here, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but he said, if you've got a problem, something that's really difficult, then that's what you should work on. That's it. That's what you should work on. You want your brain and you want to be able to be snippy, snappy, and thinking and all that kind of stuff. You can't avoid the challenges. You've got to lean into them. Lean into the sharp points. Really go into your problem solving. That's activating your prefrontal cortex. And remember, we've talked about there's different parts of the brain. We want to activate our prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that starts to shrink as we get older. But if you exercise it, and you can exercise it also through meditation and attention and focus, but when you exercise it, you not only don't lose it, it can actually be built up. Thumbs up to that. So everybody, I want tonight, when you brush your teeth, the one thing for homework, I want us to brush our teeth with our non-dominant hand. And then you can think to yourself, I'm exercising my brain. And that comes down to the number 2 thing that we talked about so much was exercise in itself. Exercising your body is just so, so important because, and here we go, it cleans out your brain. And I wanted to just read this part. The brain is like a muscle and it needs exercise, but this is only somewhat accurate. We know that there are no muscle fibers in the brain and actually need toning or strengthening, but working the brain has its benefits. The more accurate saying might be, the brain is an oxygenated hogging organ that needs oxygen, and physical exercise helps the brain to get the fuels needed. Although the human brain represents only 2% of our body weight, it receives 15% of our cardiac output. So it only represents 2%, but it is only 2%, but it receives 15%, okay? 20% of your total body oxygen consumption and 25% of your total body glucose. Now think about that. I want you to know that. Really. So 20% of your oxygen goes to an organ that's only 2% of your brain. So if you don't have oxygen going to your brain, it just ain't gonna work. And glucose is sugar. So obviously, if you have low sugar and it needs 25% of your brain, it isn't gonna work. So we need to exercise and feed our brain right. Now, the third thing he totally recommends, and we haven't gone here before, but we're going here right now, is balance. Okay, so remember, this is better with age. And he goes and he really talks about a lot on people that age well have good balance. That's right. Well, we're often obsessed with brain training, and I'll circle back to that in a second, to keep us sharp. Balance exercises along with certain strengthening exercises can help prevent falls and keep us walking. Unlike many brain training regimens, balance training can be done anywhere at any time and is free. All right, so brain training, let's go there. He's got almost a whole chapter on brain training. And what he's saying is, yeah, you can go and hire or on your phone, take those brain training games. And you are learning something new sometimes, but once you've already learned it and you keep repeating it, then it's not helping so much. So he said, by just you doing something different, like the toothbrush exercise, that helps your brain and it's free. And then he said, it's just so important that a lot of times people spend a lot of money on brain training when the truth is when they should be spending it on actually staying balanced. Because once you lose your balance, you fall and then you can't exercise. And he's already told you that exercising cleans your brain. So we need to have the blood circulating. And if you don't have good balance, then you don't have good movement. It's so easy and free to practice balancing. And he goes on and he says, in one study showed that people who can complete getting up from a chair task more than 30 times in a minute. Now that's a lot, that's up and down. So every 2 seconds you're getting up and down. But we're less likely to develop dementia and also to live, and are also more likely to live long than those who could not meet this. So that was just seeing that if people had the ability to get up and down from a chair could indicate those who will have less likely dementia and would live longer. How cool is that? That is so cool. Surprisingly, it is also a good predicator for longevity. I just said that. Oh, excuse me. Standing on one leg. So if you can stand on one leg, especially if you can stand for up to 60 seconds, but they were saying that if you can even just stand on one leg up to 10 seconds, it's a good indication for longevity and all those health benefits. So you can practice that. See, that's something you can practice, which is outstanding. Unlike memory, which can tend to be noticed when it fails, balance may be an overlooked issue until we suffer a traumatic or life-changing fall. It is only when we experience a fall that we become aware that we needed to train for balance. So I'm telling you up front, everybody, including me, everyone, we should be practicing next to a counter, just lifting up one leg, and then holding your counter and letting go and count to 10 and go back and forth, or Google it. We need to practice because a lot of times we don't realize that our balance has changed. We've realized our memory has changed, but not our balance. And we need to have our balance to stay active because we need to have our energy going through our brain to make sure we keep it oxygenated, right? And by doing that, or to go and walk the dog a different direction. And he said, if you can do something new and exercise at the same time, you are rocking it. So that would be like hiking in a new location. That would definitely be like walking your dog at a new place. That would be like learning how to garden and where you're actually doing it, or learning how to do yoga. Something where you can be learning exercise, doing exercise, and learning a new skill at the same time. Off the chart good stuff. So I love this quote from Wayne Dyer. excuse me, loving people live a loving, loving people live in a loving world. Hostile people live in a hostile world. Same world. All right, dog wants to come in again. Back and forth, back and forth. Hello, hello, I know, hi. All right, so let's talk about why that is really real, okay? And what I want to get into is our RAS filter system. So what is our RAS? This is this filter system inside our brain that makes us identify what's going on and see what's going on. It allows us to filter from our perspective. So I wrote this out because I thought I wanted to make sure I got it down right. The reticular activating system, RAS, is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information so the important stuff gets through. The RAS is the reason you learn a new word and then start hearing it everywhere. I call that the red car theory. You like buy a red car and you think you have the new snazzy red car, and then you get on the street and you're like, oh my God, everyone has the same red car. I didn't see it before, and now you see it. It's because your RAS says the red car is important, and now you see it all the time. It's why you can tune out a crowd full of talking people, yet immediately snap to attention when someone says your name or something at least that sounds like it. So think about last time you were in a coffee shop or Starbucks. You know, they ask, what's your name? You say, Lindsay. Well, they're calling names all the time and people are talking. You're not paying attention. All of a sudden you hear Lindsay and you turn around and it's your RAS, your filter system. Your filter system says, I don't need to know any of that. Don't pay attention. Ah, there's your name. And you don't do it consciously. It's very unconscious. The RAS seeks information that validates your beliefs. It is a filter of the world through the perimeters you give it, and your belief shapes those perimeters. So this is so important for us to understand, because as we age, we are developing our RAS. We're developing it. So if you think the world is dangerous, the RAS is going to say danger everywhere. Your filter is going to be looking for danger, and you're going to see it everywhere. So in the morning, if you watch the news and you see all this danger on the news, the RAS will say, oh, you think the world is dangerous. You just got validated the world is dangerous. I'm going to be on alert for danger today. And then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. You know, the other day, I think I might have told the story, but we were driving down the street and I saw this man come out of a bank. And it was shocking to me. It caught my eye that I saw this man coming out of a bank. I thought, what is wrong? And I realized it was a man, and he was a minority. And I'm like, is it because he, and I'm like, no, that's not it. And I was like, I know what it is. Why did I totally focus on this? I don't know. I mean, it caught me off guard that I looked. And then I was trying to think, what is it? And I was thinking, I didn't think, what is my RAS? Why did my RAS? He was not wearing a mask. Too funny. The man was not wearing a mask, and my RAS saw that as a danger. Not that he was a man, not that he was a different race than me, but it wasn't because he wasn't wearing a mask, because that was my RAS of danger. And I laughed. I thought, oh, he's not wearing a mask. Isn't it so funny? You need to be wearing a mask in a bank now for me to feel comfortable, no matter who you are. So we have learned that our perspective, or our RAS, if we end up judging things very quickly, we can judge them incorrectly. And that is part of wisdom of getting older. So I like this picture. It looks like the man's jumping out of the girl's mouth. Well, when you first see it, that's what your body says. Or look at this. The top picture looks like the girl is carrying the boy, but really it's the boy carrying the girl. Perspective. See, sometimes your eyes go in, or the little baby is sitting on his mom, and then what really looks like it's just some kind of weird freak of nature going on there. It's because when you're in the present moment, you can be tricked. And when we get older, that's what we do. We slow down, and slowing down is the right thing to do, because perspective can throw you off because of your RAS is working too fast and your filter system isn't set up right, then you have to kick in mindfulness. Mindfulness is being in the present moment, right here and now, and not judging it. So, like when I saw the guy come out of the bank, I was like, I could tell that I was in the present moment. I could tell I felt uneasy. And then I sat back and I didn't want to judge it one way. I wanted to like kind of analyze it, and see what's really going on. And then I realized what was bothering me was that he wasn't wearing a mask. And now that was part of my filter system and everything I see as danger or not danger. So life happens. I really like this perspective. I'm going to put this, take myself off of here, right here. So, life happens, and then we have a schism. And that really is, that's your core belief systems, your filter systems. My schism is always going to be coming through as a female, as a mom, as a mindfulness teacher, as someone who went through schooling and went to special ed school. They're all part of my schisms. They're all part of my filter system. And I have to be careful on that, because what comes in and then it goes through your RAS and it goes into all the other things, your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors, and how your body feels, your body's sensation. If you're in a threat situation because of your schism, I think I've told you all about the story that my husband got bit by a dog, and so he didn't like dogs when I met him because his schism was that dogs were dangerous. So then he didn't realize it, but when he saw a dog, he would poo-poo them, or he would want to walk on the other side of the street. That would be behavior. His body sensation, maybe his heart would start to race a little bit more, even though he didn't mean it to happen, even though it was a poodle. It didn't matter because he had that schism. So when we get older, we start slowing down and we start realizing, hey, I have a filter system, and maybe the filter system isn't always correct, so we don't make quick judgments. There's a lot of scientific studies out there that show that people that are older don't have such great reactions. They're not real, well, I don't want to say, that's the wrong way to say it. They don't have such quick reactions. So they're not, they don't move as quickly. That's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing if you're a race car driver, right? That wouldn't be good. But remember, we talked about the head CEOs are all between 50 and 70 of most countries of the Fortune 500. Why? Their reactions might be a little slower, but their wisdom to catch themselves. So when we're talking about right now, especially in racial injustice, what people are saying is you've got to look at the schisma, your filter system that you were taught when you were young, that was reinforced through your music and through your TV and through whatever it is, through your culture. And is it working? Or what comes out is actually even unconsciously a racist bias. That's what we're talking about. Everyone needs to be looking at their own personal filter system and realize that the filter system, like in the Justice Department in the United States, but also people are saying this all across the world. It's just not only United States. It has a skewed. It's skewed wrong. What comes out, what goes in and what comes out is not pure light. It gets broken by the filter system, and we need to change the filter system. So how do we do it? Mindfulness, right? I want to just run back to the study we talked about with the baseball, the smiling mind. So they did the study and they took these guys, baseball cards that were guys before 1950. And the ones that were smiling the most on the baseball cards, on average, lived to 80. Partial smile, 75, no smile, 72. Well, what it's really showing you is part of their schism, their filter system. Someone who's on a baseball card and is like, I'm here with this huge smile, and they want to put that out to the world on their baseball card. That's part of their filter system and who they identify themselves with. And they're putting that out, and that's going to affect their emotions, their thoughts, their behaviors, and their bodily sensations, no matter what. You see how that works right there? So it's so important that that's what they're talking about. When you get older, we realize that. And sometimes we mindfully realize what we use as our filter system or in our RAS isn't working for us anymore. But when you're young, you don't know that. You don't know that. So we've learned through this course that knowledge, we have so much knowledge, we have so much wisdom, that we have a ton of creativity, that when you get older, you don't sweat the small stuff. All that becomes part of our schema. I say schism before, but I meant schema. I apologize for that. Part of our schema, part of our filter system. And when we use our wisdom and our creativity and not sweat the small stuff, right? When we realize that we might have some biases that don't work for us now and that we need to change them, then our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors, and our body sensations, meaning our heart rate, things like that, sweaty palms, the adrenaline, the cortisol, decrease. And you know what? Life is better. Life is better. And those who can age well live longer. Live longer. So I also wanted us to run in and remember the story about the nuns, because here I'm talking about the filter system we're using. But remember with the story of the nuns that these women, they had a filter system that was very obviously around prayer, around love, around kindness. And so when they did the study of these women, these sisters between 75 and 107, their cognitive ability, their aging was really good. They were able to really keep up all of their cognitive thinking, no matter what, when they did these studies. And then the women, which was so incredible, donated their brains to science, and they looked inside the brains, and they had the tangles, not all of them, but some of them had the tangles that are signs of you know how I want to say autism, and we know that's not what I meant. Grandfather had, I got you on, you know what, dementia, Alzheimer's, I got it. Remember the file, my library's too big. I had to go find my key, take a breath, relax. I'm not wrong. I just have a lot of information in my head that I'm getting out. And this is where we go when we're older, is we just say, wait a second, let me find my key, let me open it up, and let me share my wisdom with you. And then you just, who cares? So I have a lot to say. It's okay to bring it down. So I want you to know that was a great example of aging and having a lot of information. Anyway, Alzheimer's. And so they had the tangles of the brains of people who have Alzheimer's, but they did not have the symptoms. This is so beautiful for me. So beautiful for me personally, I want you to know, because personally, my grandfather did have it. And so if for some reason this is a genetic trait that's going to come through me, well, you know what? So tangle up. As long as I'm not expressing it out, I don't care. As long as I'm growing and I'm being like that monk where I have loving kindness as my support, and I can use kindness and compassion and gratitude and mindfulness, and I just can have a life of what I like to say of joy, being right here, being authentic, and having my inner peace. I know that I have the choice to do my own life the way I want it to be. And so yesterday, I was talking, I think it was yesterday in our book club, there's a big difference between happiness and joy. I want to be happy, don't get me wrong. I really do. I'm happy in so many ways, you know, or even when I go to Disneyland, I'm happy, or when I get to have dinner with my kids, you know, and I haven't seen them, it brings happiness. There's lots of things. But when bad things happen, it's hard to be happy. But joy is so much bigger than happiness. When you're happy, you usually feel joy, but you can feel joy without feeling happiness. So maybe an example, my kids don't come and see me because something I don't know, they have a job interview or they have a date or something. Well, then I'm not happy, but I can still feel joy. I can feel joy that they're growing up. I can feel joy that they're moving on. I can feel joy that they're sharing with me. Joy is so much bigger. And that is what I think. And when we're coming to the end of Better with Age, I want my RAS to see joy in the world. Happiness will come with joy, so I'm not worried about that. But I want my RAS to be the filter system. I want my little filter system that breaks off, that I act with the emotion and balance of joy, that my thoughts are centered around joy. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that I don't have difficulty, but it means that I know I'm going to be okay. And that I'm going to, at least maybe today's a hard day. I'll get through it. Or maybe I feel sick, or maybe my allergies are up, or maybe my friend is in a panic, or maybe my dog is, not well. All those things. But it doesn't mean that I throw out who I am as a joyful person. That I know that I am resilient, and that through my resilience and through my learning and through my growing and through whatever's happening, that I can open my heart to joy. Does that make sense? So when we're coming to the end of Better with Age, would someone like to tell me something that they actually is one thing I said that, like, in the last couple of weeks stood out, and you realize that, wow, you're actually learning something new and that you're putting it into your brain? I would love to hear some way in which this class has helped someone bring a little joy and a little more health in their own process of seeing age. You'll have, no, you can unmute yourself. That would probably be the best way. So Lori, do you want to?
Lindsay, everything.
Okay. When you were talking about learning something new, and you gave the example of when you play the piano, don't just play the pieces that you know, but you should sight read new things. And so the other day when I played the piano, I just went to new books that I had never seen before, and I sight read through all of them. And I could feel my brain working a lot harder than it does when I'm playing stuff that I know.
That is a perfect example. And I love how you say you could feel it. So when you feel it, I want you to envision those neurons connecting and actually growing, get excited. Go, oh my God, I can feel it happening. It's so cool. That's a great example.
Yeah, it was cool, because otherwise, a lot of times I'll play something that I played like in high school. I had it memorized in high school, and I'll just play it, and I'm on automatic pilot because I've played it so many times and I learned it so long ago.
So I want to say, Lori, playing something you already know can be nostalgic. It can make you feel good. It can be very meditative. And that would be a great thing to do, especially if you were upset about something. If you felt off, if you felt sick, if you wanted to bring yourself out of the dumps and release more dopamine and all those happy hormones, that would be an easy way to do it. So that would be a great time. Now, on the other times, it's like if you're not feeling well, you don't go run a marathon. That wouldn't make sense. But when you're feeling well, then you run your marathon. When you're feeling good, then you exercise your brain. So there's different times for, when you do it. When do you push yourself, and when do you relax and really enjoy a meditative state in piano or anything you're doing? Namira, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say this morning, I walk every morning, most mornings, and this morning I go on a particular route that I usually follow because I know how long it takes. And this morning I just thought, I saw another trail that I hadn't been on up in the hills for a long time, and I thought I'm going to go that way. And I did notice that you really enhances your awareness.
Oh, thank you, Namira. And I think that's just a great example of good synchronicity. You were already doing it before the class.
Yeah, not the teeth cleaning.
Wendell Leinbach, do you want to say something?
Yeah, one of the things that you've been talking about out of the book is the fact that as we get older, certainly we have more knowledge and therefore potentially more wisdom, but we also, our brain doesn't really slow down in its functioning. If we have been creative in the past, we have every reason to believe that we can be as creative or more creative as we get older. And I've found that to be the case, and in large part because I now have an expectation that I can do that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we hear for so long that one should expect you diminish every part of your life as you get older. And I found that that isn't the case at all. And so I keep running and I keep inventing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dad, for being my dad. But I think what Dad also said in that was so important is when we go back to the RAS, I really want to those nerve endings. If you have an expectation that you're going to fall apart, your RAS is going to look for ways to prove that you're falling apart. And if you have an expectation that you're going to solve a problem or to grow or have a better relationship, your RAS, that's why I want to get into that part of the brain. Your RAS is going to be looking for it. So I actually now, with my father, and now so many of you guys are good friends of mine who are in their 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, I am excited to get older because my RAS now, this filter system is saying to me, 50s, you're a baby. You got so much to do, so much loving, so much kindness, so many things to do. And it is a little different than some of my other friends who are in their 50s because they haven't had this experience or these role models, as you guys are my role models of being. And so they think, and I'm like, what? I'm not buying into that. Karen, did you want to say something? I saw your mute went off. So I guess it's hard for me to see when people have, when I can't see your picture if you guys wanted to speak. But, Lisa.
I was taking belly dance classes I took this particular class for 2 or 3 years, and then a whole different style of belly dance class I found about, like American tribal style, and it was so weird, like going from my regular Tuesday class to like now doing this ATS, and it was still belly dance but done completely differently, and I had to like totally flip a switch up here. I'm like, okay, it's Wednesday, I'm in a different class and I'm doing different things, and I totally appreciated, and I always commented in class, I'm like, yeah, my brain has to work totally differently. And I think like dance is really, really, really important because it uses our mind and body. But it was so weird. Like also I watched Dancing with the Stars for a long time, and like, you got these professionals that make everything look, oh, it's so easy, and then you watch someone do something and you're like, okay, but then like you do it and you're like, there's such a like there's something between here and your limbs that it's funny. It takes a lot of practice, but it's good. I mean, it's healthy for our mind, body, spirit, the whole thing. So yeah, I think it's super important to keep challenging. And like Lori was saying, like you can play this, you know, something you're good at, like play the piano, but you try to learn something new, and it's like you have to really think about it. So it makes you appreciate what's going on up here.
Well, I think that's a great example of how we can practice exercising, you know, for the brain, oxygenating the brain, balance, practicing balance skills, and learn if we're learning a new dance or a new step, even if no one's watching us, because you can Zoom this now. So many at the YMCA, they have all these things, and you try to figure out how to move your arms. All that is exactly what he's talking about. We're hitting it on 3 levels. We all just practice a new step in motion, you know, and we're thinking about it. We're doing, it's like a huge brain exercise. So
yeah, I could physically feel it when I was taking those 2 classes together, and I was all like, you can feel the wheels turning. I was like, yeah, I'm using my brain.
Robbie, did you want to say something?
Last session we had, you were talking about older people doing things later. I want to check with Wendell, your dad. Aren't the 2 astronauts that went up, aren't they both? They've both been up there. This is their 2nd trip.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look there's somebody that has done a 2nd time up. I was thinking of that. And then older people being respected. I was getting scared because I get forgetful. And I'm thinking, okay, good. It's just I've got a busy shelf up there with lots of stuff on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like Alzheimer's and autistic. I get those words confused. You know what I mean? But I know a ton of information about both. And sometimes so I have to slow down, give myself a chance to open up the right cabinet to get the right word. But it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. So if you went to somebody who was 20 years old, they might not know. I know about both. I mean, I taught autistic kids for 23 years. So I have a whole playbook on that side. And then when it comes to being Alzheimer's, through the things we've read in my own family, I have a whole different playbook. Why do I have both playbooks? Because I'm older. But sometimes I get the words confused. But it doesn't minimize my knowledge. And that's what we have to grasp on. If we can't find our word, it doesn't mean that we're dumb or stupid. Don't let that be part of your wrath. It just means your file cabinet in your library stuck. Take a breath, relax, take that key, slow it down, and get it out there.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I learned a lot, Lindsay, about self-reflection. I learned a lot. It was really good. Excellent.
Oh, thank you. Well, I want to thank you all. And remember, put your name in chat or email me or text me. I would love other people to join us. Go ahead and buy Breakfast with the Buddha and join us on July 14th. It's just fun. It's a fun book. It's a book, it turned out was so successful that the guy wrote Lunch with the Buddha and Dinner with the Buddha. But this is his first one. So it's a good group of people, a lot of people that are on this class, or in this group. And I just think together we're stronger, and just know your own filter system and be proud of your filter system and change it where it's not working for you. We can do it all. Namaste, everybody.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Who's the author of that book, Lindsay?
Oh, there you go.
Roland Merulo. Okay. M-E-R. Okay.
Yeah. And you can put it on Kindle.
Oh, yeah. And I think they also have it books on tape. Recorded. I guess they don't do books on tape anymore.
Where do you get a tape recorder?
I know. I actually saved one of my tape recorders.
I still have a stereo with a cassette, but it doesn't
Yeah.
work very well. Okay,
Anyway,
cool.
Good luck with writing your book.
oh, thank you. And I will be on the Monday classes
good.
for the YMCA next Monday. So no, that's the only class I have next Monday, but it'll be Monday at 11 through the YMCA.
Okay, I'll see you
Have a great
then.
week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well.